It is a rare day. It is the day that Ben is exactly on time. I'm not getting any last minute text saying, be there in 5, hang in there, or whatever it is. Ben is not only was, I have to admit, not only on time, he was early. He beat me to the studio today,
Yeah,
which is
Jack was late.
unbelievable. It's right on the dots right now. We're doing great. And we are here to talk with the main man who knows everything. Just ask it. No, he knows so much that can help you in many ways of your life. You'd be crazy not to listen to him. So here he is, the one, the only Dr. Ben Quist. Ben.
Thanks for that wonderful intro, Jack. That's awesome.
Well, you are. I was thinking the other day, Ben, you have had such an impact on my life because I hear your voice all the time. I said it to we were in Costco. My son's visiting this weekend, and we were in Costco yesterday, and we were looking at this. They have all this stuff says, it's 15 grams of protein, even though it was like a pepperoni pizza cracker or chip or something. Yeah. And I said that you think that was healthy, but Ben says if it's in a package, don't get it. So pretty much
you gotta watch out now too. And I mean, my topic today is not on nutrition, but
okay.
I can't help but you just kind of hooked me with that protein statement. There is protein hysteria going on right now, and the food companies go through these little things where there becomes like a different, like one study comes out about something that this particular food helps with heart disease. Then suddenly on every single label, you'll see, that particular food added to it. Or in this case, protein has been really pumped up lately. And so now any food that has protein in it is good for you, right? I mean, even it has a bunch of other crap in it, so it's just funny,
Yeah. Arnold had a thing. I know you get that
yes.
newsletter too.
Yep.
Is too much protein not a good thing? That was one of the subjects this week.
So Arnold, I don't think he actually looks and reads the studies or anything.
Right.
But whoever puts that material together for him, quoted one study on individuals that have kidney disease and then their longevity and how much protein they were eating. So I don't think that was really the best study to be like, well, protein. See? Because the great majority of individuals that truly study longevity have ding protein as the macronutrient that accelerates aging, so, and that's where I've come to kind of sit as well, is that you need the amount of protein you need, which is a lot lower than many people think. If you listen to, Dr. Attia or some of these other, very famous people who are, maybe read one book and they're like, oh God, protein's so important, and they're just pushing it, where I have people who are getting recommendations. I had a middle-aged woman that came in who was trying to eat a little bit healthier, and we're just talking a little bit. Her lifestyle physician, and this is a fantastic doctor, but gave a recommendation of the same kind of protein intake I used to take in when I was a 22-year-old bodybuilder when I weighed 30 pounds. So it's just like, that might be a little bit excessive. We need what we need. We don't need it extra.
Right. Okay. Well, cool. I hijacked the
you always do that. You always get me talking about nutrition.
I can't help it. It's on my mind all the time. Every time I see something that looks misleading, I hear your voice, or I think about things all the time. So it's like, it's your fault that I hijacked.
Well,
so it comes back to you.
And it's hard not to bring it up, because it's just like, anytime you go into any place that sells food, you just see how much corruption and misleading information is on all that packaging, and it just gets me, But
me too. You got a convert. Okay, where did you want to go today, Ben? Now that I've gotten us way off course.
Well, I was hoping to talk a little bit about my email this week, and the YouTube video I did are on exercising your core. And I did this video specifically for one of my friends, because I have this one friend who's kind of my weightlifting partner now. So,
is this the guy you said 45 minutes is all we have to do? I'm going to kick your ass for 45 minutes. And
he usually wants to work out for like an hour and a half or like 2 hours. I'm like, well, you're not really doing it right then. If you can do strength training for 2 hours, you're not probably working out intensely enough. But he also is obsessed with doing core. And to him, what core is core means sit-ups. It means sit-ups. It means leg lifts. It means crunches. It means anything where you're flexing your spine forward is kind of his way he identifies core. And I think that is a very common way a lot of people, when they think about, oh, I got to strengthen my core, and they start thinking about all kinds of different things to do where they're doing like sit-up type activities. And so I'm like, and him and I always argue about this because as a licensed physical therapist and someone who has, trained, hundreds of people and worked with hundreds of patients, I think about core very differently. So I'm like, I told this friend of mine, I'm making a YouTube video and it's specifically for you.
Dedicated to you.
It's dedicated to you. So we just launched that video on our channel. It's actually, I'm going to send it over later.
Great.
But when you think about core, there are different muscles in your body that are meant to produce movement. They're meant to move limbs or cause active movement. And there's other muscles in your body where their primary function is to cause stability or to cause you to not move, right? So we can get the difference, right? Stability versus movement. And typically the muscles that are on our arms and legs, so at our ball and socket shoulder joints, ball and socket hip joints, and the hinge joints of the elbow and the knee, those muscles are all movement muscles. They typically produce, that's how you run, that's how you walk, that's how you lift up a package with your arms, right?
Right.
But in most athletic endeavors, and actually most of the things that you're going to be doing that are like yard work orientated or different things where you're trying to move your limbs, the muscles of the core are actually muscles of stability. They should not be flapping around in the breeze, like something you put on your laundry line, right? They are supposed to be locking your core solid so that you have a stable base to move your arms and legs. And that's what I always try to get to this person. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with doing crunches and sit-ups and that kind of stuff. But to make it like a half-hour focus of your workout, in my mind, is a complete waste of time. That's just one little thing to check a box on, because it's much more important to work core exercises that produce stability. And we can go over a couple of those really quick.
Yeah.
And my favorite quote with this, when you think about like someone who's about to start to sprint very quickly down a track, or like an Olympic athlete, we saw a lot of that lately, runners and whatnot.
Fantastic.
And if you look at their midsections, there is no movement happening there. They are like rock solid at that core, because otherwise they'd be flopping backwards and nothing would be produced. And the quote that I like about that is, if you have a weak core, or a core where you're not good at stabilizing at your spine, it's like trying to fire a cannon from a canoe. So imagine trying to fire a cannon in the water on a canoe. You're screwed, right? You have to fire that cannon from rock solid ground. The more solid, the better, right? Sometimes you have to put the cannon down on all its feet to make sure that, it has the stability to produce force. And really, that is what the core is for. It is for producing stability around your spine so you can do forceful movements through your limbs. Very
cool. Yeah, the core, I'm always, and I get caught up in it too. I think people think, oh, it's there's a core class.
Yep.
And you think all you're going to do is sit-ups and crunches. That's when people say core, they mean abs. That's what they're thinking of. But the core is it from your chest to your knees, Ben? Is that what do you consider your core?
I mean, there's a lot of different kind of like explanations for it, but usually like hips through shoulders. So your torso is kind of your core area. And when you look at the forces that you have to stabilize against at the core, if you were to only work sit-ups or flexion, that's only one type of force that the body has to go against when you're out in the world under gravity. There are really three different kind of forces you have to be able to stabilize against. And that would be the forces of something coming at you, so that would be the anterior forces, which would be all the muscles in the front of your core. Mm-hmm. You have to stabilize against, things that are pushing you forward or, coming on the backside. That'd be all your posterior chain, your hips, your lower spine muscles. And there's rotational forces, and there's also side bending forces that you have to stabilize against. So, forward, backwards, side to side, and round and round. You be able to stabilize against all those. So you should be trying to pick exercises when you're setting up your routine where you are having something that addresses all three of those, the stabilizing forces at your body. So if we're looking at forward, backwards, we're going to be looking at things like planks, right? So planks are really great for working the front part of the core in a stable position. If we're looking at, backwards, we're going to be looking at back extension or some of those different things that work those posterior spine muscles, or even like a deadlift is a fantastic core posterior core exercise. Things like you probably have done these before, Jack. Palloff presses, where you're pushing some type of weight out straight and then you're stabilizing. That works rotational stabilization.
Mm-hmm.
And then my favorite core exercise of all time is side bridges. And side bridges really work to stabilize the lateral part of your core against side bending forces. So you need to be incorporating all three of those different kind of movement patterns into a routine that's going to address that area.
Is a side bridge, Ben, is that a side plank, but going up and down? If
It doesn't
touch the floor.
The most important part is when you're in a side bridge position is that you can maintain a stable position. So side bridge in its most basic form, you're coming up on your elbow and your feet, and you're kind of in a side position. And you want to just stabilize in that position. And then you can add things to make it more difficult, and you can add movement. But most people should be working towards getting 2 minutes at a side plank on each side before they even worry about doing anything different.
2
You should
minutes?
be able to do a straight regular plank for 2 minutes before you even worry about doing anything else. So we need to have these kind of like, you need to lock all that in first before you start getting all fancy. And everyone wants to get fancy and they get bored.
Yes.
And they want to do, but let's get the basics down first, right?
Fundamentals.
The fundamentals.
Fundamentals. How often should you be side planking in front? Like if you said you should be able to do a 2 minute plank, how often do you recommend per week? Something like that.
So if you have someone who's a beginner to strength training, sometimes it's kind of cool to just work on moves that stabilize at the core before you work any of the stuff for your limbs, because you need to get control of that spine first. And that when I see even sometimes experienced weightlifters in the gym and I see them losing their lower back position when they're doing different things, it either means that they're not strong enough to do the movement pattern that they're doing, or they haven't done enough work at those stabilizers, or they don't have motor control to be able to control the movement. So they have the strength, but they're just not mentally controlling it. You know what I mean? So, so sometimes as a beginner, it's great to just work some of these moves in as their own workout. Because you could pick 4 or 5 different core moves that work on working everything around your entire core and do that particular routine 2 to 3 times a week before you move into some of the moves where you're using your limbs, like a squat or a standing bench press or whatever you might do that would be using the limbs where you need to stabilize at the core.
So core in a workout, core first?
So there's different theories on that too.
Yeah.
So let's keep addressing the question you had before. So you either do it as its own standalone workout, which you would do 2 to 3 times a week. That's great for a beginner. And many times that's where we're focusing when we bring new clients into the clinic or at the health club. If somebody is already an experienced weightlifter, normally they're throwing those core moves in on the days when they're working the other movements that kind of are in that area as well. So like if someone was doing a push day, so like or a day where they're with the anterior part of their body, that's the day they put it in like the planks or the crunches or different things that are hitting the front part of the spine. When you're working a posterior day, that's the day, when you're doing your deadlifts, you put in the back extension or a bird dog or a Superman and put that stuff into the routine. And you would want to pepper that throughout, but there really is no wrong way. But I would want to address all 3 of those different destabilizing forces the human body has to kind of handle at least once a week, preferably maybe even twice, possibly. You know?
All right.
And then you got another good question. What was the other question you just said? You said
where in the workout, if you're doing a multiple workout, where should the core be last? Does it matter, or should it be first before you do other things? What do you think, Ben?
That's a really good question. So there's kind of 2 different ways you can think about it. You can either put the core exercises first, like you could do a plank and a side plank and a bird dog, and maybe some type of rotational Palloff press or whatever. You can put that stuff first with the thought process of activating the core and getting it all fired up and charged up and ready to go, which is called priming. Or you could put it after the like the meat and potatoes part of the workout, because you don't want to tire your core out too much before you get to the meat and potatoes. So let me give you an example. Let's say you're going to be doing heavy squats or a lot of leg stuff on a certain day. If you're going to do the priming approach to core, you might do a little bit of core first, but not like maximal. You don't want to take it to the point where you're totally fatigued at the core and then move into your squatting stuff. I'm totally fine with that. I think that's a great way to do it. And sometimes I program that way. Or if you're going to just absolutely burn out the core, completely, then usually I would put that at the end.
Okay. So like either like a warm up or a burnout.
Yeah, either warm up phase, or it'd be like at the end, because you don't want to be. You certainly wouldn't. The worst example would be you do a bunch of stuff for your lower back, and then you go in and to do deadlifts, and then your lower back is tired, you can't stabilize position, you end up injuring yourself. So
don't want to do that. Okay, cool. Did you say you had something you wanted to show today, or do you want to talk about specifically, or no?
No, I mean basically that's what we're talking about.
Okay,
we're talking about the core today.
Okay, I loved one of the first classes I ever took at Form Fitness was your track attack. Saturday mornings. It was an hour, I think, from start to finish.
Yep.
But you always, if I remember correctly, always started with, you call them floor exercises, if I remember right, which are the what do you call this? Legs out to the side, fire hydrants.
Yeah, fire hydrants
and lifting the legs and hip circles and all that stuff. And man, that always got you fired up. That when Saturday morning you're a little stiff, you're moving, it's been a long week, you're sitting a lot at work, and all of a sudden, boom, Ben hits you with that.
Yeah, so, no, that was, God, we were doing that stuff pre-boot camp. I mean, it's funny, like all these boot camps or Orange Theory or stuff that's come out, and some of them have that stuff in there, some of them don't. But really, Track Attack was a predecessor to doing large group personal training or, boot campy style stuff.
Right.
It was a good class.
Yeah, it was. It was great. We had you get the people who just get addicted to it. I was addicted to it. We were there every Saturday. It was great.
Yep.
And you have a core class at the gym. I know it's on mornings at 5:30, and then there's some later, I believe, in the day as well. There are some other options. And I know you've had a bunch of different trainers through the years teach it. And they've all. It's interesting because there are so many core variants or exercises that you think, oh, we're going to do the same thing. It's never the same. And
it's incredible. Your imagination, or then new equipment comes out that helps, do the core in a little different way, So that's one of the fun things. And it's one of the things that's kept me interested in the fitness field is that it does constantly, there is ways to learn new things or bring in new things. And everybody's a little bit different. As far as what they're going to kind of emphasize. So that's kind of fun when you go to different people's classes.
It is. It's cool. One thing I remember, like 5 years ago, I was doing a lot of road biking, and I was having my hands were going to sleep. You're on the bent over all the time and blah blah blah. And I remember saying, "Oh, do you guys get that?" We stopped at a thing, and I said, "Do you guys get that where your hands go to sleep?" And I said, "I don't know if I do this." And this woman says, "You just need a stronger core. Your core's not strong enough to support you through a long ride." So I was like, "Oh shit! I guess I got to do more. I got to do more of that stuff."
Yeah.
But it was very. I remember that specific. I can clear as day. She was just like, "Oh God, she's right." So it affects everything, doesn't it? It's like one of those things it's functional fitness. Even
it's kind of one of the main. It's one of the main, and it's one of the reasons why. So lower back injuries are the number one injury that most people will have in a lifetime. If you look at like, are you gonna hurt your knee or your wrist or what? Most people are gonna hurt their low back. 80% of the population has a major lower back injury at least one time in their lifetime. So
80%.
Yep.
Wow.
And usually most people have multiple lower back injuries through a lifetime. And that's where the core just comes in so importantly. Not only having a strong core, but having the motor control or the thought process of knowing when you're in proper position at your core and when you're not, and that's a lot of what we do with personal training at the health club and the studio location is we just teach people how to control their core position, because when you don't control your core position, that's when those really, really intense injuries come up, especially at the lower back. And I'm sure many of your audience people either know somebody or have had this injury themselves, but a bulged disc or herniated disc are two of the most painful, basically crippling injury processes you can have many times because you just can't move. You can't stand up straight. You can't tie your shoes. You can't bend forward at all. It's awful. Everything hurts. Just trying to get out of bed hurts. You can't go in your car. You can't flex forward. It's an awful injury pattern. And that's why when I do my YouTube videos, I typically really focus on the deadlift as a move of caution. It is a great exercise for the core, but you just have to be so cautious with it. And if you are not really controlling your core position well, and even we see this even with athletes, we train, a fair amount of athletes. We train the entire high school system in Grafton, and train athletes at the health club location. And, many times even younger people can injure their lower back. So they'll come from a different facility where they've been injured several times. And that's because the trainer or whoever is running the programming is allowing them to move at their spine while they're doing the deadlift. And that is like in my organization, if I see a trainer do that, I pull them aside and we have a real intense conversation, because it is so easy to blow a disc. Those injuries heal with you for a life. We're vulnerable to having it again, and normally you always have some stiffness in that area where it's never going to feel completely normal again.
Right.
I don't mean to be a bum. I'm not trying to bum you out.
Well, when you start talking about, you can tell when someone like me, I cringe when you talk about back pain, because when I was a kid, I was in a car accident, and my mom was driving, and I didn't feel anything. In fact, she was taking me up. I was on the junior varsity basketball team. So she was taking me up. It was a game night. It was in the winter. Somebody blew through a stop sign, not going very fast, but slipped on the ice and hit us sideways. We get spun. We go into the side of the stop sign, whatever. We were like a block away from the school. And so the police came in, and they said, well, if you're right, you can go to the game. I just walked over to the game and I played that. The next day I could hardly move. Wow. And I was here as 15 years old, and went to this orthopedic surgeon or orthopedic guy, and he said, you've torn ligaments off your spine, off the base of your spine. Yeah. Oh, and, but I will always be forever grateful to him, because he wasn't like, let's operate. He said, surgery is an option, but it's not something we're going to look at. It's something. So he did it through rotation, a combination of exercises to strengthen so that they will reattach, and then it happened. Like you said, once you get it, it happened 2 or 3 more times to me through my early 20s. When I was doing, one time I was just running in the grass and slipped, and that was it. But the thing is, when you start talking about it, I started cringing. People have been through it; they know it.
Yeah, anybody who's had that, which is, I would have to say probably the majority of your listeners probably have had a back injury. So and that's why especially with younger people, like even my own children, like the things that I focus on them for weightlifting, and I have kids ages 9 through 14 right now. What we work on is that they're able to control their core position with their lifts, because that's even something where I'll see sometimes personal trainers or coaches that are working with kids where, the kids are even a little bit older and they're still doing those movement patterns wrong, in the high school gym. And it's like, that just can't happen. So even with my own children, I'm trying to get that incredibly good foundation of having motor control at their core and having the core be strong enough. And it's just a really important thing. So I urge your viewers, if you want to hear me babble about this a lot more, go to our YouTube channel and check out the newest we have there. We go through the form on all those movement patterns. Even something like a straight plank might seem like, oh, it's so easy to do, but in the video, Jeremiah and I talk about all the common areas that we see where we normally have to cue people to get them into perfect position.
He's really good with coaching core. He's taught me I reformed my core based on stuff that he has said. So I'm looking forward to that one. That'll be great. I want to switch to one thing you can before you go. And that is something that's going to be new at your gym that I'm stoked about, which is MJ is put out an email this week that on Friday morning, she's going to be starting a mobility class. Yep. And that is, music to my ears. She's something I'm really excited. She's a great trainer. Yes. And a lot of enthusiasm, very creative, but also something that whenever you do it, you go, God, we should do more of that. Yes. So now it's really cool that you're going to have that. So I wanted to congratulate you, because I think I really like that idea.
Yeah, no, it is. It is a great idea. And it's funny, I don't know how old MJ is, but she's kind of middle-aged, right? It's funny how it usually takes till about someone gets in their middle age and they get to be really focused on mobility, because that's another one where you start to lose your mobility, in your early parts of your middle age into your older age, if you're not if you're not actively working on it. You know, the
Yep.
body will take that away from you if you don't
Yes.
keep working it. So mobility classes are a really, really cool thing.
Yep.
You know, and I actually like, I personally like mobility classes even better than yoga, and I'm a huge fan of yoga, but
Yep.
yoga typically goes through a prescribed set of moves, whether they're really important or good or not. There's kind of like this, they have these series of different moves. They're yoga moves. And, some of them can be kind of extreme in the range of motions that they produce, where a mobility class, if it's well thought out and well designed, kind of picks more what everybody needs to work on. There's certain areas everybody's kind of tight in, front of shoulders, some of that kind of stuff that pretty much everybody needs.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be great. I'm really excited for her to be teaching that.
Yep. Cool. So thanks for that. And then a week from today is the Big Muscles for Mel's. It's one of those dates that always seems so far out there. And it's going to come someday. All of a sudden, it's the week from today, for God's sakes.
Yep.
So I know a lot of people are excited about that, and the athletes are such great people that it's just going to be cool. Yeah,
it is. And just to remind your viewers, that is next Saturday. It is a charity event for Mel's Charity that we're hosting at the Former Fitness Health Club location in Grafton, and the entire community is invited. We would love to have people who are non-members come. We have, I think, 4 or 5 different group exercise classes that we're running. It's $20 to take one of the classes. All the $20 gets donated to Mel's. And we have all kinds of different classes going. We got a boot camp class. We have a mobility class. We have a boot camp kind of class. We got a dance class and a senior strength class. So 5 different classes. And then after the classes are done, the Special Olympic athletes are putting on a powerlifting demo for us on the deadlift, which we've talked about that a lot today. So, we'll make sure that those guys are all doing good form on their deadlifts.
That'll be great. That'll be great.
Totally.
Looking forward to that. Very cool. All right, man. You got anything else you want to say?
Nope.
That's it. You don't want to talk to me anymore?
We got it all out. It's good.
Well, it's always good to see you. We missed a couple of weeks, so we've missed this. But you always bring practical stuff, which I appreciate.
I try to.
Yeah, you do it. You do it well. You do it well. All right, cool. Well, have a great week and keep those kids informed. So I'm sure you will. I'm sure they know all about it. Thanks to Dr. Ben. So cool. Thank you. Have a great week and look